So use randomness to your advantage. The more random things you do, the more possibilities of random things happen.
No, some paper, some note.
Randomly.
Some document is given from the other side, or this case law is useless.
No, there are lawyers who do that. Fraud hai.
That's right.
Yes. Random people saw me. कि अच्छा ये ठीक बोल रहे, अंग्रेजी ठीक बोल रहे थे और type.
Does it matter अंग्रेजी कितनी अच्छी बोलता है इंसान? Because you are somebody who went independent quite soon.
Yeah, young and dumb.
That's how you like to put it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Vaarta's litigation series. Today we have Utkarsh Joshi, who is almost 10 years into the profession now. He is my senior from law school. And today we'll talk about district court practice more than other kinds of practice. And this is a new sort of venture that this podcast is going into. We want to keep talking to more and more litigators who also go to the district courts to give you a sense of what district court practice is like. Thank you very much, Utkarsh, for joining us.
Thank you for having me over. I think I'm slightly nervous. I'm generally not, on social media.
Yeah,
on the general, Instagram, etc. I'm not on any of them. So.
But you're not on LinkedIn. You're not on.
I'm not on LinkedIn.
Facebook, Instagram, anything.
Facebook, as because I do some IP laws, so we have to check infringement whether.
For your clients.
Third parties, often people put their things up on Facebook because the value of a brand is in advertising it. So Facebook is often the first port of call. And I hear Instagram is also, but I have never started down that road yet.
Okay.
So maybe at some point.
Any reason?
There are multiple reasons. The short point being it has an information and sensory overload, which I feel 99% of it is noise. So there's a difference between noise and information. So, we have got, for example, listening devices listening out into space. And you must have heard of things such as the wow signal, jo kabhi 1970s mein kabhi aaya tha, stuff like that. So the point is, you're constantly receiving information, but it's like static. Merely because you receive information does not mean it has value.
Yeah.
So you have to differentiate between noise and signal. Of course, there could be actual signal or actual valuable information on social media, but to get to that, the amount of noise one will have to go through is perhaps not worth it.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the reasons it's not worth it usually. Social media pe aisi cheez, what can one say? I mean, yeah. So the academic reason perhaps is that.
I got it.
To put it that way.
And Utkarsh, are you a first generation lawyer?
I am a first gen lawyer.
And what's your family like? Where were you from?
My mother was so I was born in Bombay. My mother was in a PSU. She retired not too long after I graduated. My father was a journalist. He used to work in a newspaper called Blitz. And thereafter, he also, for a while, he was a chief editor of his own newspaper. And he ran that for 15 plus years, I think, based out of Bombay. And now they're both retired and living happily in their own.
And generally, so there's water and coffee.
Thank you. That was.
And which all courts, Utkarsh, do you go to?
By which all courts do you mean?
Like, where all do you practice? Where all have you practiced and where all do you practice?
So basically, now I do basically commercial litigation. What I used to do was intellectual property rights. I've learned mostly that from some very renowned people, fortunately for me. And there's a lot I learned from them. But basically, I used to do original side in the Delhi High Court when I was with the firm long while back. But Delhi High Court, mein things go if the value is more than 2 crore.
So do you want to just explain for the audience what is original side of the High Court?
An original side is where any legal action where a legal action must start. So for example, if I were to slap you, maybe it is a wrong, but can you go to the Supreme Court with it? You have to start somewhere. Maybe you start with the magistrate's court, like as a very simple example, right? Maybe I'm reducing it, maybe I'm getting something technically wrong here, but you start with whatever is the lowest court in your jurisdiction, so that would be the original court. So normally in a matter where there are, so if your matter is for, let's say, a recovery, you've given somebody money.
Yeah.
So between 3 lakh rupees to 2 crore rupees, the original jurisdiction would be a district court in Delhi in the relevant district.
Got it.
More than 2 crore rupees, it will go to the Delhi High Court.
No matter what the kind of the dispute is.
So
long as the
under
value-
Commercial Courts Act, there are certain defined, Section 2C basically of that Act defines what all qualifies as a commercial dispute. So IP is one of them, which is how I actually got into doing or got familiarized with Commercial Courts Act. And and now, obviously, once I left the firm, our clients did not have litigation of more than 2 crore.
Okay.
So most of them was in the district court. And I go a lot to Saket, especially Saket District Court on the southeast side. I go there often. In fact, an interesting thing about original side jurisdiction in India is that there were only 3 courts with original side, the 3 presidency courts: the Bombay High Court, the Madras High Court, Chennai Madras High Court, and the Calcutta High Court. I believe in 1919, if I'm correct, again I might be getting the facts wrong here, but there was another charter. So these were the chartered high courts. There was another chartered high court created in Lahore for Punjab, which, if I'm correct, had original side. I mean, which must have had original side, because the Delhi High Court derives its original jurisdiction from that charter, as does Shimla. So, which is why there are only 5 high courts in India with an original side.
So there are only 5 high courts where you can start a suit.
But I don't know about the other high courts, but in Delhi, the minimum pecuniary jurisdiction or the monetary value of jurisdiction to originally come before the high court is more than 2 crore for a commercial matter or for any other matter. For a commercial matter, it's between 3 lakh in the district court to 2 crore. So if you have to recover 1 crore, then you will go to a district court of the relevant jurisdiction. Obviously, depending on the law, there's a lot of law which governs what jurisdiction.
So you're going generally to all district courts in Delhi, or some of them, like you mentioned, Saket, but is that the primary?
Patiala House, Saket, and Karkaduma are the ones I go most often. Dwarka, not as much because it's a little far away, and Rohini very rarely. I have been because it's really far. Rohini is quite far from where I live.
And how about the proximate ones like Gurgaon?
Oh yeah, out of Delhi, yes, I go to Gurgaon. I do a lot of RERA matters there. That's in fact, ironically, how I started out, because when I left the firm, my firm was an IP firm, intellectual property. My firm, the place where I was working. And so I had fallen ill and I was recovering and stuff like that. So while I was just doing nothing and just waiting to recover and maybe, either go back to the firm or apply elsewhere, whatever, things were not clear in my mind. At that time, RERA had started in Noida.
This is
2018, around 2018.
The law is 2016.
The law is, so it's a central act, but because there's a land element involved, that's why I think the state has to make enabling rules. And those rules, even after they come, then you have to implement them and actually set up a body and stuff like that. So 2-3 साल लग गए उस पूरे process में. 2018 में ठीक से the entire process. So RERA में अब ऐसा हुआ कि लोग मुझे देखते रहते थे. मैं सोसाइटी में रहता था, one of those नोएडा की सोसाइटीज में. So लोग देखते थे कि वकील, मतलब people knew me as a lawyer. तो people knew me as an intellectual property lawyer. Maybe the translation didn't go through because some people started assuming I'm a property lawyer. And because you were basically sitting empty, so you're like, all right, मैं property lawyer भी हूँ. And basically property law सब RERA आ गया था. So I read the entire act, like एक matter में, I think मैंने 2-3 हज़ार रुपए के लिए full matter. I don't remember. It was clearly not financially rewarding. It was just to do something.
Correct.
Right? And I took that up, and I remember I read the entire RERA act. I searched for the landmark judgments. I read the landmark judgments. I made a written note, and then I went to like UP RERA. And I realized that, maybe I had over prepared a bit, right? And then वैसे ही फिर धीरे-धीरे करके like random people saw me कि अच्छा आप ये ठीक बोल रहे, अंग्रेजी ठीक बोल रहे थे और type. So ऐसे randomly people reached out, and one thing led to another, and well, here we are.
Does it matter अंग्रेजी कितनी अच्छी बोलता है इंसान? I ask because when I ask this to people who primarily do appellate court work, there the answer is very clear. It matters, like 90% of it is that, because if you can't do it, The reason they say it is because if you can't do it, you're almost ineligible to appear in most of these courts. That's what they say.
I don't think district court में I don't think, at least for now, I don't think that's an issue. In fact, no, not at all. I don't think that's an issue. और मैं commercial side की बात कर रहा हूँ. By the way, when I say district court, I mostly practice in the commercial courts on the district court. There's an entire world of criminal law magistrates that are out there where, I mean, even to say I'm not, at the end ये law podcast है, यहाँ lawyers आएंगे तो I am not qualified to say anything because मेरे से कई ज़्यादा educated और वो सब लोग हैं जो उस फील्ड में बता सकते हैं. But yes, commercial law in district courts, yes, I do that regularly, and there I can tell other people कि भाई आप मत बोलो, मुझे पता है कि क्या हो रहा है.
तो उसमें आप कह रहे हो कि इतना कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता अगर इंग्लिश ना भी, if you're not totally fluent in English, even then आप हिंदी में करो आर्ग्यू.
पूरा हिंदी में करो, आप सेंस में करना चाहिए. और देखो आजकल हो गया है कि यार इंग्लिश हो ही जाता है, और बेसिक आप सेक्शन वेक्शन पढ़ोगे उसमें इंग्लिश आ ही जाएगी. तो आई डोंट थिंक एक्सेंट, लाइक अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स व्हेन पीपल से इंग्लिश में अच्छा नहीं है, 5 साल लॉ पढ़ा है तो उसको इंग्लिश तो आती है, उसका एक्सेंट नहीं है. आई डोंट थिंक एक्सेंट मैटर्स. पर्सनली टू मी एक्सेंट डज नॉट मैटर एट ऑल, राइट? और आई लाइक टू थिंक सो. आई डोंट नो, मतलब who knows, some accent I might go like, oh, I don't like this guy, but generally I don't think accent matters. That's my, at least in the district courts, generally. Unless I have not met any such specific judge जिसको कि आपकी अंग्रेजी अच्छी नहीं है. That I haven't yet met.
And I don't think so. What I gather is district courts में even on the commercial side, it's not like judges are insisting कि भाई language of
insistent is cannot, no, insisting is not the right term. Like nobody has ever, no judge has ever gone कि हिंदी में कैसे बोल दिया.
Because I've seen this happen in both High Court and Supreme Court. I don't think all judges do it. In both of these appellate courts also, of course, you've also seen कि काफ़ी judges
हिंदी में lapse हो जाता है.
हाँ, और judges accommodative होते हैं, ऐसे नहीं कि पीछे पड़े हैं, लेकिन कभी-कभी some judges will make this comment. The language of the court is English. Why you talk? It's good to see that district courts are not necessarily doing it because cuts out a whole body of lawyers who are so bright, but ज़रूरी नहीं है कि इंग्लिश बोलते हुए बड़े हुए हैं.
एक्सेंट का स्ट्रेस मत रखो, बट यार एट द एंड हमारा गेम कम्युनिकेशन का है. तो अगर आपको समझ ही नहीं आया क्या लिखा है, वो तो एक डिफरेंट बॉल गेम है.
हाँ, राइट.
बता, वो समझ गए आप, लेकिन आपका एक्सेंट टूटा हुआ, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग ऑल टुगेदर. सो आई एम सेइंग एक्सेंट डज नॉट मैटर, बट एट द एंड इट्स अ कम्युनिकेशन थिंग. इफ यू कैन नॉट इवन अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज बीइंग सेड, व्हाट इज बीइंग रिकॉर्डेड इन द ऑर्डर, देन तो इट्स अ then how did you do your law? That's my first question. So,
and why did you end up litigating? It's a bit it's a loaded question, but कैसे decide कैसे किया? By elimination decide हो गया या कुछ मज़ा आ रहा था? Litigation, internships.
See, I love that you asked internships. In my 5 years of law school, and this is obviously not supposed to be advice.
Okay.
Right. In my 5 years of law school, I think I didn't do a single legal internship. I don't think I did a proper internship also, but I'll just tell you the internships I did. You can decide if they qualify as internships. Okay. So in my first break, in the first semester ke break, we were all obviously ki, ab to intern karenge. Yeah. So I'm from Bombay. I went back there, and हमें library internship करनी थी तब. And see, I don't know anyone in law. We are so far away from that world,
Yeah.
Like law itself. ये सब चीज़ों से दूर रहना है type of a thing. That who do you even approach for things like this? Who do you ask? Like, what are you supposed to email as a first semester? Like, what is even the process of that? Like, email पे क्या लिखें?
Correct.
Right. So I applied the library internship thing. So we'll do it as per college. So I applied to the University of Mumbai Library, and I mean I must thank that internship for one thing. There's a weird feeling I get. I cannot describe it. I don't know if there's a word for it. But the University of Mumbai Library must be, I think, 100 years plus old or something around that. It's like a very old British kind of a building. And it used to work at that time, I'm talking about 2010, with index cards. So literally, people may not know this abhi, but I actually learned all this. वो index card से तुम search करते हो, हर book के पीछे library sciences में एक code होता है. तो I'm forgetting different क्या होता है, Constitution law का एक code होता है, हर चीज़ का अलग code होता है. तो आप इंडेक्स, तो जैसे आपको कोड 34 में ढूंढना है, तो 34 में जाके तुम सेक्शन में देखोगे, एंड देन यू विल टेक आउट इंडेक्स कार्ड, चेक करोगे, उसमें टाइटल होगा, वो इंडेक्स कार्ड को फिर तुम कॉपी करोगे, यू विल कीप द इंडेक्स कार्ड बैक, कॉपी दैट, एंड यू विल गिव इट टू द वन ऑफ द लाइब्रेरियंस जो द काउंटर पे बैठे हैं, they will take it back to whatever some guy who will then know by that book इसको कौन सी book चाहिए and वहाँ से लेके जाके so I was allowed to actually go back into where all the books are stored.
Got it.
And like there were like it was like a corridor, I don't know, like there was just corridors and like I think 4 floors full of like unlimited, like you cannot imagine. And of course I know that there are many more books than that and Amazon पर से ज़्यादा है, but एक होता है, it's like knowing कि कोई billionaire है and actually देखना कि 1 billion क्या होता है, right? तो like damn, इतने सारे books and I used to just sometimes sit and उस उधर ही अंदर not do any internship anyway, करना क्या था लाइब्रेरी में, यही था कि बुक लेके आ जाना, कोई बोलेगा तो, and they didn't trust us with all that also. So basically I was just sitting and I used to read quite a bit and I used to go home early and play football with my friends on the beach. So that was one internship I did. Then I tried for another, which basically was a month-long internship, which I reduced to a 20-day one, of which I attended 10 days. I didn't really learn anything.
Where was this?
Right, Bombay, only in a law firm.
Okay.
I mean, मैं क्या बोलूँ, law firm का भी क्या नाम लूँ, it's still a good वो, but हुआ क्या कि मैंने कुछ किया ही नहीं था, क्या बोले?
Litigation or like a
litigation नहीं था, I guess corporate था, because मैंने कुछ किया ही नहीं ना, वो उससे पूछो, तो आप firm में हो सकता है आपको काम पे भेजा, आप turn up ही नहीं होते, तो फिर अब क्या है ना, क्या कर रहे थे आप exactly, हमें भी श्योर नहीं है कि क्या करके आप. And एक मैंने की जो सबसे productive internship in that sense was I interned with the Hindu business line, like randomly I worked with a newspaper, and my father was a journalist, so even though it didn't help me getting the internship, I think they were themselves surprised, why is a lawyer interning with us? So for novelty value, आओ तुम बैठो देखो क्या होता है. So but I made very good friends, and not only that, I learned, you see a different life. As a journalist is a different view of the world from, let's say, a technocrat or a lawyer or etc. And the entire thing is different. Like you can actually see कि वो जो बंदा आपके सामने बैठ के जो लिख रहा है वो न्यूज़पेपर में आने वाला है, उसका एक अलग वो है. So that summarizes my internship history.
So then, why litigation? How litigation?
So what happened was that one thing I was very clear on is that I didn't want to do this UPSC games or jo bhi, this government exam games, because some things, like I tell many people that there is a reality out there, whether you believe it or not, right? And so one of the things about reality is that age of early 20s, etc., is where I feel that, if I gave you free time to explore yourself, most people would just waste time. Just, watch latest TV shows and do some time pass through. And I just wanted to make sure that I am working 16, like somebody is harassing me. Like, it's like being on a pan under with a fire under it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be 22, 23 and comfortable. That was my viewpoint. I don't know if that is correct or not, but that's how I viewed it. So I actually got placed with a power distribution company from law school, because I was very clear. I hadn't done a single internship, right? But that didn't mean I was sitting empty. You will remember in college I was reading. Ironically, पूरे college में law तो पढ़ा मैंने इतना, मतलब उतना ही जितना पेपर निकल जाए. And the biggest irony is कि ना मैंने कोई moot court ऐसे कुछ खास किया, कोई research paper नहीं लिखा, कोई debate नहीं की. But I like to think that the time in law school was super productive, because I actually took time apart to read. And many of those things, you can't do it. Like now I cannot do it, because just simply because life में इतना कुछ हो रहा है. And at that time, it was like 5 साल का chill करो. And fortunately, some of that 5 saal I utilized to read. And I would suggest to everyone, please read well. Reading well is super important, because at the end it's all, like I was telling you, like imagine like something like Uber, right? It's such a simple concept. But, everybody has a phone, everybody has GPS, एक app बनाओ, लग जाएगा. And now it's so simple, right? When somebody tells you, and there are such million simple ideas out there, but you just don't see the world as it is. There's a reality out there. Like imagine how, the Google guys see the world. I mean, I can't even imagine. What is it like? What do they see? Information kaisa hai? When they have petabytes of information flowing through. So, yeah. So anyway, where were we? I think
I was asking why litigation, and you said you.
So I said I got placed there, and it was I could go for a 4-hour lunch and nobody would care.
Got it.
Like
But this was a college placement?
It was a college placement because what happened was ki, now in hindsight, I put my colleagues in a very difficult spot because I hadn't done a single internship. And ours was the third batch of law schools, so reputation भी रखनी थी. अब तो अच्छी है बुरी है पता नहीं, but है reputation. And अच्छी है मेरे eyes में, but yeah. So basically I had enrolled for the recruitment committee and now these guys had to get me placed. But here's a guy who's not done a single internship and he's not even sitting for firms and all. So I'm not sitting on any of the firms that came. You know, I had never done a single internship. I didn't even know what do you mean एक firm क्या होता है. Like, what do you mean like basics क्या होते हैं ना? एक होता है law होना. So it's like the difference between like the power distribution company that I joined, right? So they took in a lot of people and many people from NIT, proper electrical engineers, etc. And lawyers तो कम ही थे. So and in basically power distribution company needs a lot more electrical engineers than lawyers. And मुझे अभी भी याद है हमारा एक residential जो area था उस पे lights out हो गई. Okay. तो ये सब highly qualified engineers हैं देश के मतलब NITs are also very good colleges. And you know लाइट ऑफ हो गई तो आई थॉट दिस गाइज वुड स्विंग इनटू एक्शन कि भाई ये सब पड़ा है अभी हमारे घर पे बिजली चले गए हम करते हैं इसको ठीक. बट वो कॉल जाता है लाइनमैन को जो ITI ग्रेजुएट है वो क्या उसको पता है क्या वो सब करना है. सो एटलीस्ट मैं इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर का एक तो काम था और सेकेंड बात ये थी कि डू आई वॉन्ट टू स्टे इन अ प्लेस जहाँ मेरा काम मेन नहीं है एंड जहाँ मेरा काम बहुत रिलैक्सड है और जहाँ इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियर्स जो हैं उनको ना वो अभी एकेडमिक ट्रेनिंग से आए हैं और उनको कोई प्रैक्टिकल वो नहीं है जो यहाँ सीख सकते हैं. भाई मैं यहाँ रहूँगा तो मेरे पास सैटरडे संडे ऑफ है 6 बजे ऑफ हो जाता है. सो एट दिस एज व्हेन आई एम 20s शुड आई बी इन अ प्लेस वेयर कोई यू नो ऑल दिस विल कम इन हेल्प लेटर. कुछ ना कुछ तो आप काम कर लोगे अगर आप 15-16 घंटे किसी के काम आ रहे हो. सो आई लेफ्ट इमीडिएटली. आई वेंट टू बॉम्बे एंड देयर आई वाज वेरी लकी. द पर्सन आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग इन हाइंडसाइट, right, that he's also doing very well, and I joined him and I learned quite a bit, but he was also a little bit tired as he was a counsel and he didn't have a drafting office. I mean he could draft but he had deliberately chosen to start a counsel office. So now and I didn't know anything of drafting. Like I didn't know D ka starting ka word drafting. Like when you say bana do, what does that even mean? So मैं ये बोल रहा था electrical engineer वाला problem कि आपको सारा knowledge है but वो चलता कैसे आपको नहीं पता. तो ऐसे तो हम पूरे पढ़ के आ गए. हमने अपने कॉलेज में क्या क्या डिबेट्स करी थी अबाउट यू नो व्हाट इज इक्वालिटी, व्हाट इज फ्रीडम, जस्टिस क्या होता है. ऑलराइट बट अब ये हो गया ये बना दो. अब इसका मतलब क्या है, व्हाट डज इट इवन मीन कि ज्यूरिसडिक्शन क्लॉज लिखना होता है. अच्छा आई डिडंट इवन नो ऑल दिस. सो आई वर्कड विद हिम फॉर 6-8 months. आई कैन इमेजिन मस्ट हैव बीन टॉर्चर फॉर हिम बट ही वाज जनरली नाइस टू मी. आई कैन इमेजिन सम डेज ही विल गेट फ्रस्ट्रेटेड कि भाई तेरे को ये भी नहीं पता है ना. एंड आई गेट फ्रस्ट्रेटेड नो यार ये भी गलत हो रहा है. And but after a while because I wasn't earning any money in it and my friends told me कि या तो दिल्ली में अप्लाई कर ले वापस. and I applied in Delhi and I was very kind of I was working in a firm which took me in. So basically I just wanted to work hard. And
just to check, this is not the same firm that you went for an internship to?
No, definitely not. And I'm sure they won't even remember me just like that. And the other thing is कि how I ended up in litigation का पूरा वो है कि कुछ तो करना है, हार्ड वर्क करना है, ये करना है. अभी तो ज्वाइन तो पहला क्या किया आपने, अच्छा ये तो छोड़ दिया डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी, पहली चीज़ क्या मिल रही है. अब वैसे कुछ तो करना है, खाली नहीं बैठ सकते, वेट नहीं कर सकते अप्लाई ये सब करने का, है ना. कहीं कुछ करना शुरू कर देंगे फिर वहाँ से कहीं कुछ कर लेंगे, बट खाली मत बैठो. तो आई जस्ट जॉइन द फर्स्ट गाय एंड ही वॉज डूइंग IP litigation. I had not really done IP much in my life. And now like a year passed and now people ask you, अच्छा what do you do? IP litigation, right? And so which is why I applied to a place and they were very kind and they took me and I learned quite a bit there. And whatever I've learned at least in IP, like 90-95% is from there. In fact, maybe what they've taught me I'm not correctly implementing. Maybe I should improve that. And so there also I was doing litigation and same with that attitude कि 14-15 hours काम करेंगे टाइप कि बस सीखना है. जब आप सीखोगे हमारा पूरा जब नॉलेज होगा तो अच्छा हो ही जाएगा सब कुछ. आप नॉलेज पे फोकस करो. तो in 2018 I fell ill. So 2015 I graduated. I worked for around a year in Bombay, then for a couple of years, and then in a firm. And then in 2018 I fell very ill. And as I said, while I was recovering, then I was considering. I had also gone for some in-house interviews, etc., where they were paying reasonably well. for a job which was Saturday, Sunday off, etc. And I'd recently fallen ill. My parents were of the view कि कर लो, but then they're also of those nature कि चलो लेकिन तुम्हें जो करना है हम support करेंगे. So so one thing that one of the reading things, so I read Nassim Taleb quite a bit in college, and Nassim Taleb says that we have to differentiate between volatility and risk. So, so he gives an example. So he says, let's think of being in a job, right? And let's say you earn 10 lakh rupees a month. So, and you work with IBM. So he gives an example of IBM also. And he says, now you've been here for 20, 25 years. Now you've become those middle management IBM men who are taking good money. You become senior, so you're getting that promotion. But actually, these young new coders are way better than you. You are not required anymore. Now, when you get fired at 45, you suddenly come from 10 to 0 overnight. And you're actually not equipped for any other industry, especially to get paid 10 lakh a month. Yeah. So, the problem is that it is like if you look at his life trajectory, there was no volatility. That guy was there, he joined IBM from beginning, was there for 20 years, steady growth. And Nassim says such artificial growth is inherently highly risky and with low volatility. People confuse low volatility with low risk. And Nassim Taleb then turns it around. And then this is now I'm putting my interpretation to it. So this guy was going great one day and uski life kharab ho gayi. Right? And of course, it's not as if he can't go anywhere and all, but like that can happen कि overnight आपको कोई वापस मिल नहीं रहा है. Senior लोग बहुत senior levels पे सब हो जाता है कभी-कभी, and they don't get a desirable job, or they have to work for much lower what they think that they are worth, stuff like that. And he says the other way, and now I'm putting in my little bit of my life into it, is that when I started out, I was 26. I was young and dumb, and you couldn't. I mean, maybe I'm not as young, but maybe the dumbness, still a lot of room there. But what I thought was that how can you make my life worse? I don't have a job. I don't have like much savings, some savings, because I've always been a savings oriented. Like, किस चीज़ पे खर्चा करें, मेरे को तो समझ नहीं आता पैसा भी देखो. And so I was just like, okay, it's a challenge to me. Think of an airplane, right? If you can have the best jet engine and the best plane, but if your runway is 100 meters, you cannot take off, right? But if you have a bad plane also with some engines जिनको time लगता है warm up होने में, and your runway is 5 kilometers long, there's a good chance you can take off. Yeah. Now, I calculated my expenses, and I didn't spend much, and my rent at that time was very low. I was not staying in far away in Noida at that time, in these incomplete housing projects जिनमें रेरा वेरा की चीज़ें होने थे. So and bachelors को easily वो इसी टाइप के घर मिल जाते थे जो अभी भी थोड़ा सोसाइटी बनी रही है टाइप. So I was staying there and my rent was low and I didn't go out, no vacations, no, I didn't do anything like that. Just मेरे friends घर पे आते थे, हमारे कुछ कॉलेज के थे, तो थोड़ा उनके साथ whatever fun that was fun. Yeah. And so I used to, one thing I did was that I taught a lot of this CLAT coaching, right? That is one thing I did. So I was free and people reached out to me and they said, "Aapka rank theek aaya tha, please help out."
And this is all after
2018, after I left the firm.
After you quit.
So after I left the firm, see, it's like इतने सारे ideas थे. मेरा जो दोस्त है, जैसे मैं शाम को भी मिलूंगा, I'm meeting him after years. He since has had 2 kids and all that, and I haven't met him. I know him from before his kids का time. So we were bachelors. So he was living with me, yeah, and they started a sabzi ka business, like an online sabzi ka business. What today you would term as Zomato hyperpure. So basically a B2B business. He started, great foresight, and he started that. And so I thought यार मैं भी इसके साथ बिजनेस कर लूँगा, इसमें बहुत स्कोप है, कुछ ना कुछ तो कर ही सकते हैं ना लॉयर, कुछ ना कुछ करेंगे, ये भी करेंगे, वो भी करेंगे, कोचिंग भी पढ़ा लेंगे, रेरा भी चले जाएंगे, खाली बैठे हैं, मतलब बस बिठाओ मत हमें. That was my only thing, because when you're young, as you can gain as much as you can, and as had been predicted in the books, as you get older, the drudgery of the emails, responding to calls, etc., increases so much that you're actually not able to focus on getting better. that actually I feel overtakes a lot of people. And perhaps I should also, the chains of everyday thing keep getting heavier. So how do you cast them off, etc. Some things I'm still pondering on. But yeah, so in 2018, eventually I start with doing some RERA matters. I think मैं ये भी करूँगा, वो भी करूँगा. CLAT coaching भी थोड़ा पढ़ा लिया, उससे भी थोड़ा बहुत sustenance निकल गया. And I thought कि यार अगर मेरा 12 महीने का है, let's say I actually spent very less, like 12,000-15,000 a month. I was living on that, like total expense including rent and electricity and everything. And if I have, let's say, 150,000 rupees, then that's like 10 months.
Yeah.
And now, am I telling myself, like, now this is a challenge. तू 10 महीने में 15,000 रुपये नहीं कमा सकता. अगर तू कमा सकता है 15,000, तो 11 महीने हो गया, right? And so the longer you can make your runway, someday your plane will take off.
Yeah.
Right? So it was just ऐसे ही challenge. नहीं चला तो नहीं चला. And I think, but that attitude of कि भाई कोई expectation नहीं है, कुछ जो भी काम है दे दो, and no ego on it कि हम जाके adjournment भी ले लेंगे. So I've gone on like cold winter days, नोएडा में सुबह 8 बजे निकल के 10 बजे द्वारका पहुँच के adjournment लेने के लिए for people who are in other courts, जिनके लिए ये सब करना है. So I've done stuff like that, and people are like, but that's what you always wanted कि कुछ ना कुछ कोई trust करता है मुझे कोर्ट में appear करने के लिए. That itself, it still blows my mind. Damn, I feel that responsibility.
No, that's amazing. And so then, this is after
Sorry for these roundabout answers.
No, not at all. This is actually giving me a lot of information, saving a lot of questions.
Oh.
And so the next sort of thing I wanted to ask is, COVID would have hit roughly about 2 years down the line.
COVID, again, hilarious. I mean, in hindsight, it was a tragic time. People suffered. But in my hindsight, I look back at it and I think how hilarious. How there were things happening in your personal life, there were things obviously professional life. And so think of it, 2018 I go independent, polite way of saying unemployed. And it will be accidental independent, not really. I fell ill, and as I told you. And then tum RERA ke some low level matters kar rahe ho, and like low level is not the right term. See, it's a big thing. People have bought houses here for lakhs, and people are not getting them. But by like from the standards of the standard of litigation, etc., at least जैसे अब जब मैंने जो LLU से पढ़े हैं, तो your friends are in big firms dealing in big matters. So compared to that, low level. But every matter, let me please just clarify, हर matter में there is an ability to excel. चाहे वो 1 रुपए का matter हो या 10 करोड़ का matter हो, right? So maximum हम 10 करोड़ बोल रहे हैं हमारे. हाँ. So if you were talking about COVID, yeah. So in 2018 तो कुछ सीन नहीं था, 1-2 थोड़ा यहाँ वहाँ रैंडम अपीयरेंस. 2019 में एटलीस्ट वो एडजर्नमेंट लेने जाना बढ़ गए, है ना, कि लोगों के लिए यार उत्कर्ष जरा वहाँ चले जाना, या छोटी मोटी चीज़ें वो बढ़ गई 2019 में. 2020 में किसी के थ्रू मेरा पहला रिटेनर क्लाइंट था कि जनवरी या फरवरी 2020 से मेरा रिटेनर शुरू हो रहा.
एक्सेलेंट.
एंड इट वाज लाइक कि पार्टी, है ना. पार्टी मीन्स कि अब मतलब एक तो पहला था कि सर्वाइवल ही एट स्टेक है. लाइक दैट रिटेनर वाज नॉट इनफ टू लाइक डू वेल, बट दैट रिटेनर वाज कि ओके अब मैं जी लूँगा, अब मैं रेंट पे कर सकता हूँ और मैं खाने का पे कर सकता हूँ.
महीने बढ़ गए,
मेरा रनवे बढ़ रहा है. सो एंड देन मार्च 2020, है ना, ऑब्वियसली आवर गाय विद द रिटेनर क्लाइंट वाज अ रेस्टोरेंट बिजनेस. So automatically, 2020 March say, what do I tell him? Obviously, he's like, I'm trying to keep my guys alive, pay them a salary just to get through this period and everything. So it was like कि पहले लोग कॉल करते थे, हम उनको रेट्स बोलते थे, and they were like कि आप तो बहुत महंगा, आपसे नहीं करेंगे. इतने महंगे नहीं थे, बट जैसे कि आप कोई भी नहीं हो, आपको हम ये भी क्यों दे, जब लोग 2 रुपये में करने को रेडी हैं. तो so anyways, I was like, okay, नहीं दे रहे, but at least कॉल तो आते थे. In that March to September, October, that man, insane, like not a single call. Like, and it's like, कल का क्या plan है? कोई plan. And so I don't have a car. The metro, so I mostly travel by metro and all. So I'm a Bombay kid like that. Yeah? And so all my transportation was basically public transportation. And so I can't even go anywhere. I don't even have a cycle. So everything was like shut. ऐसे भी नहीं कि आपने कैब Uber book की चले गए कहीं मेट्रो से चले गए, like nothing like that. And the only thing I was like कि मैं तो यहाँ हूँ, आपको कोई भी काम है, कोई डरता भी है कोविड से, कोई नहीं, मैं चला जाऊँगा, है ना? My USP is that I'm here. And yeah, there I was, and COVID was a crazy time, and a lot of, I mean, I had a great time because I ended up making a lot of friends during that period. And 2020 was not professionally, but amazing otherwise, like friends, etc. I met because, you know, when I was in 10th standard और छुट्टी हुई and people were like, जिंदगी की second last छुट्टी है, 12th के बाद ये last छुट्टी हुई, उसके बाद तो भाई आप ग्रेजुएट होकर सीधे काम करोगे, तो छुट्टी लेने के लिए परमिशन, तो भगवान ने हमें 2020 में 6-7 महीने की छुट्टी दे दी, प्रॉपर सबको छुट्टी दे दी। सबको नहीं होता, हमारे बाकी जो फॉर्म वाले लोग थे तो अभी भी कर रहे थे सब कुछ, मे बी विथ लोअर प्राइसेस, एंड सब ऑनलाइन हो गया था। सो मतलब ऑनलाइन होने में थोड़ा टाइम लगा था, बट इवेंचुअली ऑनलाइन हो गया था। So it was one hell of a time, and I cannot thank enough people. I'll have to make a long list. We survived due to them, and so yeah, COVID was insane.
And did you have any chance to visit throughout the COVID period, like until 2022 when it finally went away, to visit any district courts at that time, just to get a sense of?
I did. But it was not as regular, see, because I didn't have much matters, but I did for others, as I told you. So I have gone during that time to district courts, especially in 2021 when things had started really opening up. Then we had gone for many times for filing also, because I didn't have a clerk. So I had done stuff like that. But
do you think they were well equipped to handle whatever happened? Like, were they equipped with technology?
I think nothing like today, right? Because it was all, you know, as Taleb says, that all, you know, every progress or regress is an outcome of unexpected events. Because what is expected has been planned for and accounted for. Yeah. So you move forward by suddenly getting a case in which you do well, and you move back by suddenly things happening like, because if you can plan it all, then तो कुछ बचा ही नहीं. Life would be like an Excel sheet. Yeah. But life is not. And especially in our field, every day you go and you're like, अच्छा ये हो गया यार, ये सोचा, like I didn't even imagine, है ना? So those kind of things happen, and somewhere you imagine, but you say कि यार ये सब थोड़ा ना होगा, और हो जाता है ना?
Can you give us a peek into what a district court looks like? In a sense, I'm trying to imagine, and I'm sure many of our viewers are new to the district court setup. Right. When one imagines whether the district court is well equipped to handle COVID.
Oh, it's improved tremendously.
Is that true only for the commercial side?
Only for Delhi. So definitely commercial side, yes. In Delhi, yes. They have created separate buildings. There are escalators. It's centrally air conditioned. The courts are modern. There are, the IT thing is sorted. The appearance thing, online appearance thing is way better. Of course, we still run into some issues, but it's generally way better than it was at any stage, I think, before. Yeah. And
as compared to the other buildings, for example, the criminal side, how would you compare it?
Definitely the infrastructure, I feel, is not the same. But see, these are old courts now. When I'm referring to buildings like that, I mean, like, you talk about Saket in general. The infrastructure is way better than Kadkaduma in general.
Got it.
Right? So, but within Saket, the commercial building, and so there are new blocks which have opened. So in one block is the commercial side, and another there are family courts and magistrate courts also. So they are shifting people into their courts, which are criminal courts also. So to strictly say that all criminal courts are old is also incorrect. Yeah. But generally, like, the new block is better than the old block. Yeah. And they are moving the commercial building to the new block. That's what's happened in Tisazari also. Tisazari, it is most starkly visible. Yeah. In where there's a new block on the other side of the road. And the older block is there, and the older block has spitting, पान थूकने के लिए जगह है, और ये सब है हर फ्लोर पे थोड़ी जगह पे. And
are there monkeys in the commercial building in Tisazari?
Not inside, definitely not. It's a centrally air conditioned, sab shut hai. There is no way to. It would be a really determined monkey. I mean.
The traditional building is.
Yeah, the traditional building. We also within the enclosed court वोट तो ऐसे तो problem नहीं है, but yes बाहर है.
No, even within the staircase where you take the staircase to the first floor there. They've now installed some grills to prevent them from coming in. But yeah.
That's the last touch.
Yeah, and what does it look like? For example, if you enter a courtroom in a district court, people who've just gone to the High Court, just gone to the Supreme Court, may find a lot of differences in the way a courtroom is structured. The district court में कौन बैठता है? The way courtroom के अंदर जज बैठा है.
ये शॉक वैल्यू सबसे ज़्यादा आएगा जब तुम दिल्ली एनसीआर के कोर्ट्स में जाओगे. आई थिंक फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल if you come from High Court to District Court का original commercial side in the new buildings, you'll be like, okay, बस it's not as grand but it's nice, it's well made, it's centrally air conditioned, बैठने की जगह, it's clean, all that is there. Of course, it will be if you are the person who has lived in privilege, then it will come as a shock to you. But if you have traveled in India के देसी buses में with the vomit stains on the outside, then all right, I mean. That's how it is. But you'll get really shocked if you go to Ghaziabad and all. Yes. If you've never been to district courts, then if you go to places like Ghaziabad, it will be the proper courtroom में कुत्ते उत्ते आ जाते हैं, stray dogs. So I'll tell you an interesting story about Ghaziabad.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
All right. So my friend and I, you know this friend, but so my friend and I were doing a matter in Ghaziabad court. And so my friend lived in Shahadra, so which is closer to Ghaziabad than where I lived. So I said, "Bhai, tu mere se, you reach earlier than me because you live closer, and I am also coming. And by the time, in case the judge sits, because officially the judge is supposed to sit at 10, but there are delays, unforeseen delays. Judge can sit at 11, 12. So basically, he reached there. Our court was on the second floor. So he reached there, and it was a rainy day. And he reached there. So there was like a ledge to sit in, plus keep your stuff outside the court. So उसने अपना छाता लिया साइड में रखा, and he must be doing something in his, would take out his laptop or whatever, band जो भी. But like literally a monkey came and stole his umbrella. Like when I say stole, मतलब वो वापस कभी नहीं आया umbrella, है ना. गाजियाबाद कोर्ट के बीच में बंदर ने उसका छाता चुरा लिया, है ना. I mean, I don't know, I can't get over it. It's like still one of the most.
Yeah.
So like गाजियाबाद के बंदर भी ऐसे खतरनाक है, मतलब बच के रहो.
No, I just wanted to know what apart from the infrastructure, like you mentioned, there's a stark difference. लोग कौन होते हैं कोर्ट के अंदर?
Of course, there's a judge.
Is it only a single judge bench always?
In district court, yes, I've never seen. I don't know if it's legally possible to have a two-judge bench, but
to my knowledge, it's not. But
even I have never seen it. So see, I'm more of a kind of a guy कि that's why this is a practice. Practice करो, कहीं थप्पड़ मिलेगा, you will learn. Don't feel bad about it. मतलब feel bad in the sense कि okay, गलती हो गई, but that थप्पड़ is itself not the end of it. It's a learning experience. कि okay, अगली बार से नहीं करना, right? And you try कि अगली बार से नहीं करना है. बहुत बार चीज़ें double, triple मैं repeat भी कर लेता हूँ. But so there's the court, there's a judge, there's no DB so far as I know, and there is a reader or court master. There is a steno, right? And there is like a guy who announces, I don't know what it's called, it's like an orderly guy, kind of a guy, but he announces what matter is next. So he'll come out of the court and announce. So this is one thing which doesn't happen in High Court, and which now that you're telling me, it's so normalized that I don't even think about it. But they'll come out and actually shout out the name, कि A versus B, है ना, ऐसे करके.
State Rajpal.
हाँ. Number 2 state versus Kundan, है ना, ऐसे करके they will do stuff like that, and which doesn't happen in the High Courts. And of course there's the Ahmad, who is a very important part, but he's usually not in the front, but he basically maintains the court's files. He prepares the notices to be sent out, etc., etc. So he's also a very important part, but he's not usually not there inside the court. They have a separate room, Ahmad room. So yeah, I don't know the strict translation of Ahmad. I don't even know which language it is from. Is it Urdu?
It has to. I suppose it's Urdu, but and what is a Naib court, for example? So
Naib court is in criminal matters. I just know that they represent the cops. Again, people with more technical information will. I don't want to say something which is later on wrong.
And it's. I mean, all these things are almost so alien to somebody who's never stepped foot in the district.
It was so alien when I started out. I never even heard all this, and that's why I say kids intern.
Yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't I don't think it really matters. But anyway, if you intern, you'll know all this.
And because if you read district court orders, you suddenly come across terms like Nazir, Ahmad, and these people are supposed to keep the records of the court in
Nazarat branch.
Nazarat branch. And
I'm still figuring a lot of these things. और एक सुन, ये सब क्या बोल रहे हैं?
correct, and FIRs are full of so much Urdu that you will not somebody is a Vasi of some place, and then if they're collective noun, then they're Vasiyan of a place. And this is something I learned yesterday while reading some FIR in a criminal matter. It's
a learning every day.
Learning every day, and so that's very helpful to know. And do you think there is a difference in how much opportunity younger lawyers can get in a district court? जैसे कोई 2 साल का experience है किसी को, मैंने किसी को ऐसे बोलते हुए सुना है कि अगर आप independent होने का सोच रहे हो, you spend 2 years. It's good if you go independent and start working at the district level. Maybe 3 years, 4 years, High Court. But for Supreme Court, you may need much longer. इसके reasons बहुत हैं. मतलब किसी ने मुझे कहा कि it's because the age of the judge also increases. So, which is why I think some people say for a junior, you may like it or not, but in this profession, people do judge you by your age. And if it's a younger judge, they are likely to be more friendly with you because you're almost their age, as opposed to somebody who's maybe an uncle's age and may not necessarily appreciate you trying to be too smart in court.
That's an interesting question because it deals with, the question is talking about results and is talking about causality of them. So you're saying, if I want X result, the cause, so for example, आपको क्यों नहीं मिला? The cause was because you were young. So we are trying to affix causality to some results.
One of the contributing factors.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that a causality is so difficult to determine in such things because the probabilities of what is going in. I don't know if I'm being clear on this. I understand all these things, but I don't know if everybody does. But what percentage would you attribute to age? And normally, what I have found, most competent, at least most judges are competent, and most competent judges would themselves also see कि क्या हो रहा है केस में. तो merely because you are young, what I have experienced is कि कोई older lawyer हो तो कभी-कभी एकदम ही point अच्छे उस lawyer के खिलाफ है. एकदम ही, मतलब it's like उसने बस गलत चीज कर दी है कुछ. And by गलत I mean कि इस jurisdiction का है नहीं. कोई और साकेत jurisdiction का नहीं है, कड़कड़डूमा का था, आपने साकेत में फाइल कर दिया. अब क्या है, वो डे 1, अब हम अपियर हम डे 1 में वो डिसमिस कर दे तो यार उसका क्लाइंट तो यू नो, सो द जज में इंडल्ज हिम ऐसे कि ऑलराइट, इसको चलो हमने देख लिया, अब ये केस लॉ ने जो प्रोड्यूस किया एक बार आप पढ़ लो, नेक्स्ट डेट पे रिस्पॉन्ड करें, देख लेना, इस माइट बी, सो यू माइट गेट दैट काइंड ऑफ इंडल्जेंस, बट इट्स नेवर गोइंग टू बी लाइक कि यू नो कि बिल्कुल अच्छा अब यंग हो बस. I don't know if it goes on. I don't know what do judges think like that. I hope not. But I have not, at least in my experience, felt कि कुछ एकदम unfair हो रहा है. Indulgence थोड़ी मिल जाती है कि यार वो भी 60-70 साल का आदमी जब मुंह पे बोलते पहले दिन पे dismiss. कुछ है ऐसे भी judge, right? But most judges are, as I said, our profession is an interpersonal profession. Bar and bench cannot live without each other. Yeah. So थोड़ा सा both sides थोड़ा सा give and take ऐसे तो चलता ही है कि सर आज पहले दिन मत dismiss करो, कोई नहीं कर दो, examine करेंगे with liberty to file at different court ऐसे करके कुछ कर देना. So that I have seen, and I have seen such orders come against me because I was younger, but बनता था मेरे खिलाफ, अभी जैसे मेरे को ऐसे indulgence नहीं मिली बस.
And do you think other factors like gender, how you appear, accent, sometimes do these things also matter?
See, in any personal, interpersonal field, you know, does it matter how you are dressed? So first of all, हमारे प्रोफेशन में एक तो यूनिफॉर्म है. That's great for people like me because man, I am, you know. So मैं आई थिंक आज भी वही कपड़े पहनता हूँ आधे जो कॉलेज में पहन रहा था. So I think मैं आज भी कॉलेज के स्वेटशर्ट पहनता हूँ जो तब से चल रहा है. But luckily for us, there is like 5 white shirt मंगा लो Amazon से, 3-4 black pant मंगा लो, 2 कोट मंगा लो, and you're set. Black जूते मंगा लो. What else do you need? So appearance में what do you need to appear? Like you should appear, I feel, just normal. Like not, you don't have to be flashy. You know, now you have a full face tattoo and all. Like of course, in any interpersonal thing, it's
no. But you know, lawyers who will keep 3 pens in their front pocket.
I barely, sometimes I don't have a pen.
Gold ring.
अच्छा, okay. So my mind has never even thought कि ये सब चीजें influencing factors हैं.
So I've been exposed to some conversations where people talk about how some lawyers deliberately will try and put off an appearance which shows them as more experienced than they are. For example, somebody who's 2 years into the profession may think that people will not take me seriously, but let me appear a little more like
Let me get a beard and mustache.
Or maybe 3 pens here, which looks
Expensive.
like I mean business, yeah, and those pens may be expensive and stuff like that. But all these things.
This is like I equate litigation to like being in a forest. So there's a tiger here, there's a king cobra here, there are like parrots here, and there is an ant also, an earthworm also. And can you say a tiger is better than an ant? Well, one would say there are more ants than there are tigers, like, so ants are much more successful in an evolutionary manner. So, I mean, who are you to judge whether the ant is successful? Like, who's a tiger to judge whether the ant is successful? So what I mean to say is that there's a whole range of, it's like a forest. One is not better, they just exist contemporaneously, at the same time. And I mean, there's a role for everyone. With good accent, with bad accent. Some lawyers have no understanding of law, but they are successful in the sense that they understand what the judge wants. And on that particular date, I mean, I've seen stuff like that. So all I'm saying is that it's not a straight jacketed black and white. कि भाई आप अच्छे से law करो, अच्छे से हो जाएगा. तभी ये practice है, it's not mathematical. So the world is divided into, as Taleb said, the world is divided into 3 levels of problems: simple problems, complicated problems, and complex problems. So simple problem is like picking up this cup. If I have enough strength, I can pick it up. Like a 1-month-old baby cannot, right? A complicated thing is like making a Swift, like Maruti Swift car. Like thousands of parts go into it. But once you have a blueprint and once your suppliers are set, you can make one every minute.
Yeah.
Right? A complex problem is like somebody coming, or let me give a legal example. 10 people come to us with the same goal. Let's say 10 लोगों को trademark register करना. So 10 people come. कुछ लोगों का 6 में 8 महीने में हो जाता है, कुछ लोगों का 2-3 साल में हो जाता है, और कुछ लोगों का 8 साल से चल रहा है. अब how do you explain this? So complex problems are like somebody comes to a doctor, 100 people come to a doctor complaining of cough. Now some just have seasonal flu, some have some specific allergy, like you have allergy to cats or something. Some just came thinking it was allergy but it's lung cancer, right? Some have COVID, somebody else has pneumonia, and some other such harmless things. So our profession is a complex profession, right?
Yeah.
So, but the simple-minded people, or whatever, people don't get me wrong, or whatever, people who do not think about these things clearly, and again, no offense to, let's say, an Uber driver or anyone like that, but like when you often, I'll talk to my Uber driver and he'll have an answer to everything. India-Pakistan border में क्या हो रहा है? ऐसा कर देना चाहिए, हो जाना चाहिए. Because for him, the entire world is a simple problem. ये उठाऊंगा हो जाएगा. But we understand that we don't understand the complexity enough. Yeah. Right? I like to think कि मुझे कोई बोले कि हाँ अटैक करके करते हैं पूरा. I'm like, I don't know. What are the repercussions? पूरा सोचना पड़ेगा कितने लोग, what's going to happen? Like I just can't take इतने लोगों की life in my hands जैसे. At least I can't. But I don't have that. So we are in a complex world. You have to understand that. And even 1 rupee का matter is complex. Even 1000 crore का matter is complex. 1000 crore के matter में there's often more disposable income to get some top minds to work on it. So just approach the problem correctly. If your approach is wrong, if you approach a complex problem in a simple way, then so.
And is there a culture of promptness, a culture of trying to do things on time with speed? I understand जैसे commercial courts building आपने कहा अब अलग है, so it's almost a different world now.
In some senses, yes.
So is there also a difference in how much the वकील कितनी बार जाके तारीख ले लेगा?
हाँ, commercial courts में मुश्किल. मतलब you have to be really like कुछ लोगों का skill होता है डेट लेना, तो you have to be like it's not for the taking. मतलब it's not बस चलेगा डेट लग गई. And really depending on the judge, you may not get a date.
And judges will sit as opposed to taking leaves without notice. Is that also the same, or is that?
See, now there has been, I think, an order of the Delhi High Court or the Supreme Court, some higher court, basically, which says that if you're taking a planned leave, you must tell in advance. So normally, when a judge is taking leave, now normally in a district court, be it commercial or non-commercial, you know that who's taking leave. But I mean, what can you blame? What if somebody falls ill? So I don't see that as that major a problem. Like at least in my experience, but I know people suffering from कि हर डेट जाते हैं तो जज छुट्टी पे है ना. I know that. बट कभी कभी लोगों की किस्मत खराब होती है. वो 3 दिन छुट्टी में था 8 महीने में, वो 3 दिन आपका मैटर लगा था मतलब. So
And otherwise, the culture is in a commercial courts sort of setting. The culture is of promptness.
most judges ensure that, yes. Most judges.
Is there a way you can compare it with the High Court? Because you've done High Court original side also in the commercial side.
I mean, in what sense? Comparison in what sense? I mean, physical infra, like what are you asking?
Not physical infra, but maybe culture of all the participants, the lawyers, the judges, clients, anything that you can sort of shed some light on. Is there any visible difference, or is it all the same?
Definitely, the visible difference is that the top dogs of our profession are there in the High Court, and not all of them make great district courts. And it's not always because of the district court is below them. It's just that, as I explained, 2 crore ke upar hai, who's going to afford a 5 lakh rupee fee for a matter which is 1 crore and per appearance if you pay 5 lakh. So it's often like that. But I also find that many times, especially as a young counsel, you get a chance to argue for half an hour something, which in the High Court, the judge may not give you the time. Matlab, in both cases, you may get a favorable order. But in one case, the judge may listen to your ramblings for 30 minutes because he's also done with the day. But in High Court, normally, most judges are not done for the day by 12 or 12:30, which can happen in many times in commercial court. So it has been my experience. Sometimes you get that opportunity where the judge, because all work is done for the day, is willing to indulge you and hear. He's like, I know the law, but chalo.
So it's an important detail. You said they get done by 12:30. Why is that?
See, it depends on multiple factors. Sometimes the hearings are listed for procedural work, that somebody had to file something.
और ये court 10 बजे शुरू हो रही है.
10 a.m. the court starts. Sometimes the matter was for arguments, but argument was for 5 minutes. Sir, ये है, हो गया argument खत्म. क्या बोल रहा है? Clear लिखा है कि पैसे देने थे, उसने बोला है पैसे देने थे, email पे आ गया कि दे दूंगा पैसे, अभी देता हूँ, नहीं दिया, अब उसको देने का time आ गया, तो हम court में आ रहे हैं. So sometimes it's as clear as that. And so sometimes the judges do get done early. And so let's say there are 20 matters listed. So commercial courts may usually, compared to what they say, we've seen 138 courts where your item number can be 122. The 122 matters, right?
Do they reach?
They all reach. They all reach. Matlab, the judge will see most of them are procedural nature and stuff like that. So only few are for actual contesting and some arguments. So but in commercial courts the volume is not as high. And so hats off to the Delhi government, I guess, for this. And so commercial courts, I think the judges, if you have 20 matters, 4 are connected. So one person asks a journal, 4 matter nikal gaye. 10 matter the, they were for procedural things, iska file karna, uska file karna. 3-4 matter the, issues frame हो रहे हैं, proposed issues आ गए, ये आ गया, हो गया. एक आध मैटर कोई एविडेंस के लिए था, विटनेस आ जाया नहीं, है ना. तो अगर जज पूरा अगर सब आता तो एक्चुअली जज 20 मैटर भी नहीं कर पाता. बट इट्स अंडरस्टूड इन आवर सिस्टम कि इनएफिशिएंसी इज बिल्ट इन. यू कैन कॉल इट इनएफिशिएंसी और यू कैन कॉल इट, व्हाट इज द अदर टर्म फॉर इट, व्हेन यू हैव समथिंग एक्स्ट्रा, रिडंडेंसी, राइट? यू कॉल इट रिडंडेंसी, call it inefficiency, whichever way, right? I like to think of it as redundancy, but so I mean, judges do get, sometimes they get lucky, and there can be many days like that when you are in court and you can utilize that or not also. Sometimes मुझे भी ऐसा लगता है क्यों तंग करना है भाई जज को unnecessarily for arguing for 50 minutes. Some judges will cut you short. I got your point and your first sentence कि there's a Supreme Court judgment saying this. You don't need to read the entire judgment के it's all right, I got the point. And Supreme Court के वो High Court ने 4 वो follow किए, वो भी लेके I got it at the first point. So there are many judges like that, but sometimes judges are kind enough कि मैं भी खा ली हूँ. All right.
And have you done or seen somebody do something outlandish in court? Like you see this random things that cinema portrays about lawyers standing up on the desk, shouting something at the judge, shouting something at the witness, that famous scene from No One Killed Jessica. I don't know if you've seen the movie.
Sorry, I haven't. So I don't see many pictures. I don't know much OTT. Not much on social media.
No, this lawyer is just shouting at a witness constantly, and in a
I haven't had an experience where people are shouting at witness constantly, but yeah, funny things you see. But funny, maybe you are in court, so it's funny. Somebody outside like, इसमें क्या? उसने ऐसा कह दिया, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है ना? So, but you might find it very funny. But outlandish, I mean, not. But I mean, at least my experience is not कि something outright derogatory हो रहा है. That I haven't.
maybe not derogatory, but like over dramatic or
That I think you see every day.
something maybe you don't see in the high court.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes people feel freer in the district court. I don't know why that is. To, as I was saying, argue senseless points which the High Court would have shut down. Bhai, I'm बहुत busy. I don't have time for all this. And sometimes the district judge may indulge you. So I have seen हमारे opposite भी sometimes कोई केस नहीं है, but आके एकदम कला like just random चीजें shout करके चले गए. But actually, if you read the document, there's nothing there. You can call me chore, you can call me everything, but actually कुछ है नहीं substance. तो even if everything you ask और उसके बाद भी कुछ आपको मिलने नहीं वाला है. So in the final analysis, see at the end, what do you expect from a judge? You expect a judge to keep an open mind, listen to both sides. And I mean, in my mind, a bad judge would be, because see, we are in a adversarial profession, which inherently means that the judge must keep an open mind and hear both sides and how they present it also.
Yeah.
So I think a bad judge would be someone just who has already made up the mind कि you can have a strong inclination based on documents etc. कि भाई 99% यही है, but at the same time you should, I mean I feel, and what I find कि district courts में judges often have an open mind. And in fact, sometimes you would say too open कि भाई सर बिल्कुल ही गलत कह रहे हो, इतने भी freedom मत दो, है ना, बिल्कुल ही झूठ बोल रहे हैं, सब लिखा भी नहीं है उसमें. But still, that's part and parcel. And exactly, some people demand discretion maybe due to their age.
Yeah.
Some people demand discretion due to other factors. हमारे profession में किसी judge का बेटा है वो पता नहीं. You don't even know. That's what I'm saying. Causality is such a funny thing that you think you are appearing and you argued and amazing.
Yeah.
And you got your order in the favor not because you did something, but because the other guy was so irritating to the judge. Yeah. So it's like, I don't care what you say. इसको तो मैं
नहीं दे रहा.
हाँ. So you like to think कि मैं तो order ले रहा हूँ.
Such an interesting thing that you say causality is very difficult to pin down.
Because हमारा profession पूरा आधे लोग हैं, अब again, sorry to the profession, but आधे लोग हैं कि हवाबाज हैं, है ना? और I mean, I'm also not some scientist or anything, but again, as I said, we have to keep in touch with reality. That wood is hard, like stuff like that, which you cannot avoid. And often in our profession, you get so caught up with these. See, what is law at the end? It's just purely fiction. We've just created these random rules about how to govern us. And the day we stop believing in these rules, the society falls apart.
Yeah.
Right? So there is no option but to believe in these made up legal fiction. But I sometimes feel that you get so caught up in the fiction that you forget the world. I'm saying most people, so they mistake correlation for causality. And I try to not do that. I try.
So on that, I'm only wondering, because the most romanticized things about litigation, right from the time when some litigator visits you in law school, is this idea called courtcraft. ऐसे पता है वकील की बड़ी टैक्ट है कि आप बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, मतलब इसमें से ऐसे नहीं कि सब कुछ ही हवाबाजी है. आई एम श्योर कुछ.
Oh no, एक सेकंड. So बोलो, there are things जो hard reality है, and there are things जो हवाबाजी है, and some people get caught up so much in that they don't know the difference anymore.
So what I'm saying is the idea of courtcraft generally थोड़ा सा ambiguous छोड़ा जाता है इस चीज़ को हमेशा. Examples दिए जाते हैं.
Because it's subjective criteria.
Subjective criteria. But how much do you think courtcraft is deployed generally by lawyers consciously?
100%. Now when you say consciously, like how do you tell what a guy who's 25 years into profession eats, sleeps, breathes law? Like, as as the joke goes, I have a mistress, and that's law. Yeah. So that guy's been, what is conscious anymore?
Fair.
Like difficult to say.
Yeah.
And And so that's why, as I was saying, that I really now believe in that lawyer brotherhood. I didn't earlier, as I'm more into the profession, because I find it easier to just interact with a lawyer. मुझे पता है क्या deal चल रही है, and he will informally tell me, देख, you know, अभी मैं तो कुछ बता नहीं रहा हूँ, but client is not so agreeable ये सब चीज़ों में. I won't disclose anything or anything, but just telling you upfront that this settlement is not likely to go through. That's the impression I'm getting. बाकी जो formally email आएगा देख लेंगे. So, you know, as a lawyerly thing, like I have had people request me कि यार उस दिन मत list करवाना, next day list करवा देना, मैं personal difficulty में हूँ. तो ऐसे मेरा क्या रहता है, मैं किसी दिन list कर रहा हूँ, भाई हमारे तो client को relief चाहिए. But all that I understand. Like I feel that I have, you know, I see what you're going through and different things, and that you have to be in Saket that day, और मैं कर दूंगा, मैं कुछ list करा रहा हूँ. I get it. So I'll ensure it is on the next day.
Yeah.
That you don't. You know, जिसमें कुछ substantive harm ना हो रहा हो with the client. Obviously, at the end, if I'm not getting my client results, then तो बस आप हवाबाज हो. At the end, what is the point of all this? Like, और ये सब बस लिखा हुआ है. You have to influence reality. Like reality is कि किसी का पैसा वापस नहीं आया. आप डिग्री ले आओ, कुछ भी करते हो, उसका पैसा वापस नहीं आया. Reality is कि एज अ लॉयर आप फेलियर हो, है ना? तो at the end उसका वो पैसा वापस आना है. वो टेस्ट है रियलिटी का.
So then, what is courtcraft?
So what is courtcraft? So one thing I strongly believe is that number one is interpersonal skills. If the judge, आपका चेहरा देख के अगर जज का दिन खराब हो जाए, ऐसा होता है ना कभी कभी, like you just see some people, they're nice people and all, but you just don't get along with them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. That's what some people say कि भाई उसको वहाँ मत लेके जाना, ये वो. Second thing about courtcraft, and I think I very strongly believe in it, is phrasing. So you know, you can say something from level 1 to level 10. वो चोर है. अब आप सीधे आके कह दो चोर है, तो जरूरी भाई स्टार्टिंग से ये सब शुरू हो गया, मतलब एक सेकेंड, यू नो. सो देयर आर लेवल्स टू इट. समटाइम्स आपको कुछ बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है, आपको इम्प्लाई करना है, एक्सप्लिसिटली कुछ नहीं कहना. दैट्स कोर्टक्राफ्ट. किसी जज के सामने मुंह पे जाके बोलोगे ना वो चोर है, एक सेकंड, विदाउट एनी एविडेंस यू शट अप, एंड नाउ यू हैव अ नेगेटिव इंप्रेशन अबाउट यू. राइट. सो उस जज को नहीं बोलना है, उस जज को थोड़े फैक्ट्स दिखाने और इम्प्लाई करना है कि वो चोर है. जज विल अंडरस्टैंड कि वो चोर है, बट बोलो मत. एंड सो आई थिंक दैट इज कोर्टक्राफ्ट. सो फ्रेजिंग. To say चोर है, there are different levels. You can say that the accounts seem to be inaccurate. You know?
Yeah.
So बोलते हैं ना कि synonym, like what is, though the words are not equal, they have similar meaning. I can't seem to recall, but I do this every day, and every day we'll talk with our juniors and be like, see इसकी phrasing ऐसे नहीं, मतलब correct आपने लिखा सही है सब, but you know कुछ और कहने, मतलब वो लेवल कम करना चाहता है आपने. लेवल 10 पे कर रखा है, इसको लेवल 8 कहना है.
Subtle करो तो.
हाँ, इसको 7 कहना है, और उसके पर्यायवाची ढूंढो जो फिट होते हैं इस पे एग्जैक्टली. बिकॉज व्हाट इज कम्युनिकेशन? इट्स जस्ट गिविंग यू द आइडिया व्हाट आई एम थिंकिंग, ट्राइंग टू कम्युनिकेट दैट यू यूजिंग अ लिमिटेड टूल ऑफ sending across that data. Like my data set is there's these 26 letters और उसमें there are sentences, and इसमें मुझे आपको एक feeling convey करनी है. And the facts behind those things might be very complex, right? So, I mean, it is courtcraft. How do you know, give that feeling to the judge here? And I mean, yes, the courtcraft does exist. There are great lawyers. So one of the, and this lawyer's name I can take, one of the best experience of courtcraft I had at the beginning in my career in Bombay, where in one of the matters I was seeing, there was a senior advocate called Mr. Venkatesh Dhond. Fantastic. I mean, क्या ही बोलना, these guys have more years of practice than my age, so है ना, so क्या ही बोलना, मतलब who are we to even, but anyway, so but I'll explain what I saw. So we took him for a matter, and I remember this was before Justice Kathawala. He was quite famous in Bombay, Parsi judge, and very fair and very well known. And so we took this guy because the other side was doing something completely wrong, and the other side ka lawyer also appeared. And appear करते ही for half an hour, Justice Kathawala just like gave him a rollicking, the other side's lawyer. And Mr. Dhond for those 30 minutes just kept sitting. So he must be earning a good fee. I don't know what his fee was, but it must be substantial. And what I realized was watching, आग में घी डालने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. अच्छा कोर्टक्राफ्ट वो भी है कि यू नो बहुत बार क्या होता है, इंटरप्ट करते जज को बोलता है अच्छा इसको तो मैं देख लूंगा, और तू क्या कर रहा है तब से.
करेक्ट.
So sometimes the game is to just shut up. But it's difficult to do that when somebody is paying you, let's say, if you're, I imagine it is when somebody pays a senior advocate 3-4 lakh for an appearance, just to shut up for half an hour. I mean, I can imagine it is, I mean, I don't think I would be able to, like, 3-4 lakh रुपए कुछ तो बोल के आओ, right? Client को लगेगा बस बैठे हुए हो. But I guess that is courtcraft, where, you know, he just sat for 30 minutes, didn't say a word, and then matter पे date लगी, कुछ नहीं, all right, बस चला गया.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So I guess that is also courtcraft.
And how about gestures? The reason I asked you about films and pop culture also is that the impression is given, which definitely doesn't exist, at least in most lawyers in the High Court and Supreme Court, is that the lawyer will use all of his body like a machine.
There are lawyers like that.
Yeah, and the file will be picked up from one end, thrown on the other to create impact. But इस तरह की चीजें होती हैं.
There are lawyers like that. आजकल फाइल वाइल थ्रो करना जब से डिजिटल हो गया सब कुछ थोड़ा मुश्किल हो गया.
No, some paper, some note.
Randomly.
Some document is given from the other side, or this case law is useless.
हाँ, ये मुझे याद है पहले जब फिजिकल फाइल्स होते थे तो बहुत बार से एडजर्नमेंट भी लेना है ना, तो कि कोई भी फाइल जो सब उठा के ले जज को ऐसा ना लगे कि भैया बिल्कुल ही खाली आता है एक सेकंड, तो कोई और मैटर की उस मैटर का भी नहीं फाइल उठा के. बट अब तो जब से डिजिटल हो गया, मतलब एनीवे आई डोंट, एटलीस्ट आई हैवंट थॉट ऑफ these things, doing these things, but I think naturally कुछ हमारे भी hand gesture आ जाते होंगे. Now that you tell me, I should ask my juniors someday कि भाई मैं ज़्यादा Italian तो नहीं बन रहा हूँ, है ना?
No, but I'm not talking about the ordinary hand gestures that we may keep doing while talking to each other, but like the dramatic.
No, there are lawyers who do that.
That's right.
That. Yes, and I mean, listen, it also depends on you. It depends on the judge. As I said, it depends on your reputation. Some lawyers will do it, it's fine. I do it, it may not be fine. But there are things that I may do, the judge may be fine. Yeah. But if he does it, the judge may not be fine. So it really depends. It's a very interpersonal and very individual trait. Our problem is a complex problem.
Yeah.
So long as we try and make it a complicated कि सब ऐसा करेंगे तो स्विफ्ट गाड़ी बन जाएगी, that is just mischaracterizing the problem. Yeah. So till you don't understand this, I feel you cannot fully appreciate. And just because आपने कुछ आपकी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड चीज़ें निकल गई ना, इट्स लाइक आप लॉटरी जीत गए डज नॉट मीन आप जीनियस हो, राइट? इट जस्ट मीन्स कि आप लॉटरी जीत गए. दैट्स व्हाट द रियलिटी इज, दैट देयर इज नो डीपर गेम इन इट. सो attributing causality, I think, is a very important part of your self growth, because if you see yourself in the mirror and you see यार मैं तो genius हूँ, there can be 1,000 reasons why what happened. Difficult to attribute only to yourself.
From that, I want to come to the causality of getting work. Now, it's a tricky thing, but एक difference जो मैंने देखा district courts और appellate courts में, it's about the number of clients that are present in the courtroom. I don't know if it's also true of the commercial building, which you can confirm, but generally on the criminal side and on the usual civil side, there are a lot of litigants as compared to maybe the higher courts. ऐसा कभी हुआ है कि किसी ने कोर्ट में आपको बहस करते हुए देखा और बाद में, मतलब जो हमें पिक्चर बताई जाती है यूजुअली हमारे सीनियर्स कभी कभी कहते हैं कि नहीं ऐसे ही होगा, आपको कोई स्पॉट करेगा कोर्ट में आर्ग्यू करते हुए, उसको लगेगा क्या बहस करता है, वो फिर आपके पीछे पीछे आ जाएगा, क्लाइंट कहेगा कि सर मेरा केस तो आप ही लड़ो. तो इस तरह की चीज़ें होती हैं.
होता है, मेरे साथ भी हुआ है. एंड बट सी द थिंग इज, एटलीस्ट मेरा इसमें माइंडसेट बहुत क्लियर है. कुछ चीज़ों में ना यू कैन नॉट, एटलीस्ट मेरा ऐसा थॉट प्रोसेस है, आप इतना दिमाग नहीं लगा सकते, वरना वो ना करो और मतलब जो होगा रैंडम. सो यूज रैंडम, इट्स ऑल रैंडम. सो यूज रैंडमनेस टू योर एडवांटेज. द मोर रैंडम थिंग्स यू डू, द मोर पॉसिबिलिटीज ऑफ रैंडम थिंग्स हैपनिंग. सो इट्स लाइक इफ यू थ्रो 1 डाइस, तो 1 in 6 चांस की कुछ नंबर आएगा, या ना 6 या ना. बट इफ यू थ्रो डाइस लाइक 1,000,000 times, राइट, नॉट ओनली 6 आएगा बट और कितनी सारी पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं जो यू नो, बिकॉज तब 6 आया तो इट्स लाइक यू नो लूडो, लाइक यू ऑल्दो बहुत प्रिडिक्टेबल, इफ यू थिंक ऑफ इट बहुत प्रिडिक्टेबल गेम है. देयर आर 6 sides, you throw it, बट इमेजिन द अनसर्टनिटीज बिल्ट इनटू इट कि कोई किसी की गोटी काट सकता है, वो लाइक इतना complication, even though that I feel is a complicated thing and not a complex thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, some mathematician would have to confirm it, because it's on a probability game. What is actual, some probabilities might be very high, but they are predictable, right? And some are just simply unpredictable, like a doctor ke paas kaun aa raha hai and cough kya hai. So on getting work, I believe that at least at my level, everybody has different things. See, I'm from a normal middle class family, no business contacts. In fact, some relative of mine was in a good place in a company. And one day he called me to ask me something about a matter which other lawyer was doing, charging maybe 4-5 times what I charge, and exactly what I am doing, and maybe I would have done it better than that lawyer. So I told him, why are you getting done by ऐसे? So he's like, यार nepotism नहीं दिखना चाहिए बिल्कुल, nepotism नहीं होना चाहिए. And see, this is the difference between a business family and a salary class family. Like a business family वो बोले, अरे हो रहा है तो अपने लड़के को दो ना, कहीं और से जा, किसी और को क्यों जा रहा है, right? And this is why whenever I visit somebody जिसका restaurant खुला है, कोई ये होता है, because I do a lot of IP and all that, I insist on paying. I say, अगर मैं आपको नहीं support करूँगा तो कौन करेगा? I have to support you. आपके दोस्त ही सब फ्री में खा जाएंगे तो फिर दुनिया को क्या खिलाओगे, right? So कोई भी ऐसे होटल होता है, बोलता है भाई मैं डबल रेट देके जाऊँगा, देखना तो अपना मैरियट बना, फिर मैं फ्री में रहूँगा, राइट? पहले तो बना, तो जैसे अब आज अगर हम कोई अच्छे लॉयर बन जाएंगे तब हम अपने दोस्तों को फ्री में एडवाइस देंगे, राइट? अभी खाने को नहीं है, आप उसके ऊपर तुम फ्री मांगोगे तो फिर कैसे चलेगा? दैट्स माई बिलीव ऑन अदर पीपल ऑल्सो, बट सी आई एम फ्रॉम टिपिकल मिडिल क्लास फैमिली. So the only thing that I had was that I have to be good, like again I compare our profession to the medical profession, even though I hold medical profession in much higher stead due to the knowledge and the level of, you know, the complexity in medicine is, I think, way beyond, because we are purely legal fiction. Medicine is academic creation, estimations, probabilities with like a hard reality, like somebody might lose a leg, you know, like stuff like that. हमारे उसमें तो एकदम ही वर्स्ट केस सिचुएशन है, डेट दे दो, अगले दिन मैं कोई सीनियर डबल पढ़ के, लेकिन सो वैसा मेडिकल में नहीं है. बट आई थॉट ऑफ इट लाइक, you know, like think of the top surgeons, right? So the top surgeon is in Fortis Hospital on Monday, Max Hospital on a Wednesday, Apollo Hospital on a Friday, and has his own private clinic on Saturday, right? So what is it? Like, so if you become Messi, Barcelona will come and find you. Your job is to become Messi. The only thing that is in my control is to learn as much as I can of the law. Try and do the very best I can. Now, you try, you fail. That is I'm completely fine with that attitude. I tell my juniors also, गलतियाँ करने में प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, अपनी गलतियों से सीखो और दूसरों की गलतियों से भी सीखो, वरना तो ऐसे ही रह जाओगे. The difference between Sachin, so that's the question I ask people. So you are a selector in the Indian cricket team. Somebody tells you पाकिस्तान टूर जाना है और हमारे पास दो लोग हैं सिलेक्शन के लिए. एक है कोई 15-16 साल का लड़का है, अच्छा खेलता है, और एक है बंदा जो 10-15 साल से रणजी खेल रहा है. He's 28 years old, right? And he has whatever 300 Ranji matches under his belt. So who do you select? And without any further information, you always say, of course, the guy with 300, more experience. But obviously, the correct answer here is Sachin Tendulkar, right? And so why? That is, in fact, who's that guy जो वो सब किताबें लिखता है? I'm forgetting. Yuval Noah Harari? I can't. I don't know if he had only written this book, Outliers or something. Malcolm Gladwell. I think that was. In one of the books, basically, it was कि the reason you improve. It's not that Sachin at 15 has more experience or has faced more balls than a 28-year-old guy. It's that Sachin एक तरीके से एक दिन out हुआ, and he's like मैं वापस से कभी out नहीं होऊंगा. And that, for example, that Ranji guy had a problem of facing short balls. वो अब उसको 15 साल हो गए, लेकिन अभी भी वो short ball नहीं खेल पा रहा है, right? So try to be Sachin, and Sachin is not, you know, of course, we say God-gifted talent, but you know, वो बस एक दिन ऐसे खेलने नहीं चला गया. He has, like, look at Virat Kohli, man. That guy doesn't, I think वो छोले भटूरे नहीं खाता, कुछ नहीं खाता. Like, imagine living a life without eating the delicacies of life. And I'm a vegetarian, so limited delicacies maybe I can't miss out. Yeah.
And now on to the monetary part. Is there money in district court practice?
First of all, आपके खर्चे कितने? अगर आपको चाहिए मैं Mercedes Maybach में घूमूंगा, then no, there is no money. I mean, of course, there will be a couple of guys जो Mercedes Maybach 8 crore की खरीद लेंगे among the thousands of district court lawyers. You know, couple may rise and do so well. But I mean, there is money to live. There's money to live with, you know, being reasonably proud and without cutting back on life's necessities. Yes.
And do you think that generally lawyers who practice at the appellate courts, they view district courts with a sense of prejudice? In the sense है वहाँ छोटा काम होता है, असली काम यहाँ.
See, objectively छोटा काम तो होता है, because like the jurisdiction ही है. अगर आपका 30 लाख का मैटर है, 30,000 करोड़ का मैटर है, तो मतलब obviously छोटा काम है 30 लाख वाला. Prejudice, I mean, maybe I just don't hear it.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's just कि कोई मुझे कहता है वो तो खराब है, and I just don't realize it that they mean it in a prejudicial way. I just mean it in the sense कि it's like somebody says अरे वो तो Indian है, I'm like हाँ मैं Indian, but somebody may be saying that with prejudice. I may not get the second layer messaging. Yeah. So I haven't per se like felt it, and maybe if somebody said it also, so I'm just like okay.
And are there lawyers? The reason I'm asking this is because I want to know if ऐसे भी वकील होते हैं जो कॉन्शियसली ये चूज़ करते हैं कि भाई मैं अपनी एक्सपर्टीज़ एक एपेलेट लॉयर की तरह नहीं, एक ट्रायल प्रैक्टिशनर की तरह बनाना चाहता हूँ. हम सुनते हैं ऐसे लॉयर्स के बारे में हु आर डूइंग वेरी वेल, बट जनरली आपने कभी सोचा है कि मैं ऐसा लॉयर बनना चाहता हूँ हु हैज़ अ ट्रायल एक्सपर्टीज़, और आई वांट टू डू एवरीथिंग, और आई वांट टू बी एन एपेलेट एक्सपर्टीज लॉयर? डू यू थिंक ये सारे क्वेश्चंस इंपॉर्टेंट भी हैं, मतलब, और शुड समबडी वन जस्ट फॉरगेट अबाउट देम कि भाई तुम यार जो आ रहा है वो करो और लेट लाइफ टेक यू वेयरएवर?
See, it's a lot of it is like a mindset kind of a game. So I like to think of it this way कि like I am in a forest with unlimited random probabilities, and if you select कि मुझको एक ही टाइप की probability चाहिए, it's like मुझको एक पेड़ की टहनी तोड़नी है बट मैं उसी पेड़ की टहनी तोड़ूंगा, मतलब उस पर्टिकुलर ब्रीड की. यू विल फाइंड देम इन द फॉरेस्ट बट यू विल वट एवर. एंड मेरा ऐसा मानना है भाई चाहिए तो जो पहला मिल गया वो कर लो, एंड उससे फिर आई माइट लर्न समथिंग उस टहनी. अच्छा इस पेड़ के ऐसे होता है, ऐसे वुड ऐसे कर सकते हैं, देन लाइक दैट. दैट्स माई पर्सनल व्यू, and this is very personal. I think some people just want to do one kind of a thing, which I'm completely fine with. What happened with me was that over time I started to get particular matters. जैसे IP मुझे ऐसे कुछ खास पसंद नहीं था. अब आपने IP कर लिया तो then you start seeing layers जो पहले नहीं दिखते थे. And now it's become interesting. कोई बोलेगा अरे उसने ऐसा ऑर्डर पास कर दिया जज ने, तो अदर पीपल आर लाइक हाँ कर दिया. And you're interested. अच्छा ऐसा भी होता है, सोचा भी नहीं था हमने. You get interested. So this entire thing कि मुझे पर्सनली ऐसा लगता है इंटरेस्ट क्या है वो सब क्या है, जस्ट ऑल मेड अप. यू डू वन थिंग फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. दैट्स माई पर्सनल व्यू. आई नो पीपल हैव स्ट्रॉन्ग इंटरेस्ट, बट आई डोंट नो दोज इंटरेस्ट अगेन रियलिटी बेस्ड और परसेप्शन बेस्ड. आई एम श्योर इफ यू ट्राइड अदर थिंग्स, आई एम श्योर इफ अगर कोडर भी बनना होता तो बाकी जैसे इंजीनियर हम वो भी कर लेते, और सिविल इंजीनियर आई एम श्योर पढ़ा के वो सब करके वो भी कर लेते. मेडिसिन में भी मैं नहीं कर पाता, है ना. बट
सो मोर और लेस यू लेट द क्लाइंट टेक यू wherever.
Some things, no, some kind of matters we say no to because, like as a matter of policy, I don't do divorce matters too much. Because my thought process is, so I'm from Bombay, so thoda sa, we've been around business and all, so you understand what is happening in business, or you think you understand kya pata. But yeah, so it's a bit like that. I don't think you should, I mean, personally, from my personal viewpoint, I don't think you should try and specialize. However, I do understand that some people want to do particular kind of law because they may find great interest in it. I get it.
And generally, do you think people should, or lawyers should try and work in teams? It is not necessarily you open a firm, maybe you open a firm, you have a chamber, but is it ज़्यादा इंप्रेसिव लगता है कि when a client comes to your office, यार ये तो टीम ऑफ लॉयर्स है, या एज अपोज टू यार ये तो एक अकेला वकील है, इसके 3 जूनियर हैं, और ठीक है तो अकेला वकील.
I see what you mean. The thing is, there are people with internal scorecards and people with external scorecards. So internal scorecard में like you don't care what others say. I mean, you should care like to the basic level, है ना. If कि बिल्कुल ही फटे हुए कपड़े पहन के आ गए, मतलब इतना भी नॉन केयरिंग, what do you call, सन्यासी इतना भी नहीं बनना है. But at the same time, you can't have an external scorecard completely. कि यार उसको मैं पसंद नहीं हूँ तो मेरा खराब है, उसको मैं पसंद हूँ तो बेटर है. I personally don't think about these things. I think about it like this कि अगर आपके पेट में दर्द है तो आप डॉक्टर के पास जाओ. आपको डॉक्टर की ज़रूरत है, डॉक्टर को आपकी ज़रूरत नहीं है. So I don't even think about these things. मेरा बस इतना है कि अपना काम करते रहो, ये करते रहो, कुछ आए, try your best. आप गलतियाँ कर सकते हो. कभी कभी क्लाइंट के कहने पे you have to do things which, well, you may not agree with. So you end up doing them, but so long as they're not illegal or anything like upfront. But yeah, but you do things which you may feel, यार ये सब क्यों करना है, but you end up doing them. So on that, on working on teams, etc., I personally think, it is my personal belief that interpersonal skills are super important in our profession. And so anybody can do a case, doing a case per se, like that is the only case in your life. Like many clients might know the matter better than you because it is the only case in their life. And they've seen it from zero. And कब कैसे झगड़ा हुआ, उसने ये बोला, ये तो वो एक ही चीज़ बार बार पढ़ के उनको फैक्ट्स बहुत बढ़िया पता है, उनको एक लॉ उस पर बढ़िया पता है कि वो एक ही 2 सेक्शन पे लड़ाई हो रही है, वो उनको बहुत अच्छे से पता है. You can win a case or lose a case, but can you build a practice? So for a practice, I guess at some level, what is our job? बहुत ही simple job है, information analysis. Information आएगी, उस information को analyze करना है based on different sets of rules. आप हाई कोर्ट ओरिजिनल साइट फाइलिंग कर रहे हो, एक रूल है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट में क्रिमिनल फाइलिंग कर रहे हो तो कुछ और टाइप के रूल्स हैं. हरियाणा रेरा में फाइलिंग कर रहे हो तो कुछ और रूल्स हैं. एनसीएलटी में फाइलिंग कर रहे हो कुछ और रूल्स हैं. आपको जो इन्फॉर्मेशन मिली है उसको प्रोसेस करना है इन लाइट ऑफ दिस रूल्स और एक आउटपुट देना है, राइट. एंड या आई मीन सो व्हेन यू थिंक लाइक दैट, या आई मीन आई फील कि एज अ लॉयर ना स्पेशलाइजेशन में ऐसा कुछ, मतलब आई डोंट फील इतना कुछ वो है, बट जस्ट फॉलो द रूल्स एंड डू इट. दैट्स आवर जॉब, एंड सो लॉन्ग एज वी डू इट वेल, आई थिंक या.
And you told me that before the shoot started, you told me you don't have a visiting card.
I still am that @gmail.com ID, because I personally feel so, and this can be maybe held against me in the future because maybe the reality is such that I have to do all this. But till now, I have avoided doing, like, I don't have a visiting card, no LinkedIn, no, I don't advertise of any kind at all. Even the indirect advertisement like LinkedIn and all, I don't have a personal issue with it. Like when other people do it, I mean, do whatever suits you. I have that forest wala analogy. Sub type ke who am I to judge कि a stork is good or not? Like, it's all what it is. So it's just not for me, which is why I was a little hesitant about the entire podcast thing also. Yeah. But obviously I know you also well, so I know that कुछ untoward नहीं होना होगा. And sorry, can you repeat that question?
So where I was heading is कि now
I
that
don't have
you're
a
not,
visiting card, and how do you get the monetary vote?
yeah, so you don't have social media, you don't have visiting cards. One wonders how do lawyers, I mean, हमारी जनरेशन के लिए सवाल बहुत जेन्युइन है. हमसे पहले जो लॉयर्स थे उनके लिए तो सवाल ही नहीं था.
नहीं, बट एक सेकंड, क्या लोगों को क्लाइंट मिलते हैं इंस्टाग्राम से?
अपेरेंटली मिलते हैं. अपेरेंटली लोगों को क्लाइंट्स इंस्टाग्राम से मिलते हैं, लिंक्डइन से मिलते हैं, फेसबुक से मिलते हैं.
जस्ट डायल, पीपल सजेस्टेड मी आप जस्ट डायल.
जस्ट डायल, या
पता नहीं देखा. आई डोंट हैव टू बी एवरी एनिमल. आई एम मी, एंड आई थिंक द ओनली थिंग दैट आई पर्सनली फील इसकी जिसको पेट दर्द है उसको डॉक्टर ढूंढना है. डॉक्टर को पेट दर्द नहीं ढूंढना. तो मेरा काम है मैं अपने काम में जितना अच्छा हो सकूं, और फिर जिसके पास प्रॉब्लम है वो आएगा मेरे पास. आपको लगता है मेरे, और मुझे ऐसे कोई वो नहीं है. मुझे क्लाइंट्स कहते हैं हम आपको चेंज करके दूसरा लॉयर कर रहे हैं, मैं उनको यही बोलता हूँ ऐसा वैसे होता नहीं है ज़्यादा. आई थिंक एक आध बार ही हुआ होगा, बट मैं उनको बहुत क्लियर बोलता हूँ केस आपका है, आपको जीतना है. इसके जो बेनिफिट्स एंड जो प्रोज एंड कॉन्स जो सारे होंगे वो आप पे आएंगे. तो कभी ऐसा आपको ना लगे कि यार मेरे लॉयर से पूरा नहीं, मतलब वो एट द एंड इट्स ट्रस्ट. इफ़ यू फील दैट वो ट्रस्ट टूट गया है, इफ़ यू फील कि यार उत्कर्ष पे भरोसा नहीं है, देन प्लीज़ एट द एंड मैं नहीं चाहता कि कुछ भी होगा मैं ही रहूँगा चाहे तो डूब जाए. लाइक I may have made errors. I can make errors, and I don't want for you to suffer any untoward harm due to me. So if you feel like that, please. I really very strongly feel that, because हम तो बस एक वो है ना, it's like we are a tool to achieve what you want. So आप please ensure करो आपका पूरा वो सही हो रहा है. I don't want it on my conscience also कि अरे डुबा दिया सर आपने. No, I don't want that. है ना? So you may lose a case.
So when you look back now, how you got them? Like for instance, what have been the sources of them? I don't want to know obviously the names of people.
Yeah, but 99.999% are the lawyers.
But who are these other lawyers? How did you know them?
Yeah, even I don't know. Just randomly. Yeah, that's the answer. Like, see, again, we are asking for causality in a totally random chain of events. It's like people say that humans were meant to be like how we are. But it's a complete, evolution is completely random, Like, why did certain apes die away and we didn't? Why did certain mammals evolve the way they did? And it's completely random. Like, you can look at the result and say everything evolved perfectly for that to happen. but it's not like that. There were random things happening. Now when you draw an image, you can draw a straight line, but actually it wasn't. It was just random things. I think Steve Jobs was also
What is that image for you? For instance, you're right that it can be a million possibilities, but now that you know what sort of accidentally worked for you, but what I'm trying to do is maybe draw a pattern out of everybody I speak to. कि भाई like you said, क्योंकि इतना randomness है, you use the randomness to your advantage, and one way of doing that is perhaps, I think you didn't say it in as many words, but perhaps what you meant is you just put yourself out there in multiple places to increase the possibility of random things happening.
That is, of course, that is exactly that, except just to qualify it a bit, at the end, how you are exercising your... So, put it this way. अगर आप एक tech startup करते हो, there's a chance it might fail. But can a tech startup guy become a billionaire? The possibilities exist. आप लॉ करते हो, इज देयर अ चांस कि आप बिल्कुल ही भूखे मर जाओगे? पर अगर थोड़े भी रीजनेबल लॉयर हो तो एकदम भूखा मरना, तो मतलब आई वुड कॉल इट इम्पॉसिबल टू टेक स्पेशल स्किल, है ना, टू बी सो बैड कि भूखे मर गए. बट क्या आप बिलियनर बन सकते हो? नहीं, लॉ में करके आप बिलियनर नहीं बन सकते, राइट, अनलेस आपका कोई साइड टेक बिजनेस है साइड में, राइट. सो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज दैट इफ द रिस्क्स दैट यू हैव टेकन इन लाइफ, द रैंडमनेस इज कि मैं जाके पत्थर तोड़ूंगा रोज, तो अब तुम कितना भी अच्छा पत्थर तोड़ लो, तुम्हें 600 रुपये का दिन का 800 रुपये मिल सकता है, बट कभी 600 का तुम बिलियनर नहीं बन सकते. अगर तुम टेक स्टार्टअप रिस्क लेते हो तो बस्ट भी हो सकता है, बट आप बिलियनर भी बन सकते हो. तो मैं कहने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि रैंडमनेस ऐसी करो, बस रैंडमनेस मत करो. रैंडमनेस भी, सो दैट्स द डिफरेंस बिटवीन बीइंग टैक्टिकल एंड बीइंग स्ट्रेटेजिक. सो यू प्ले दोज स्ट्रेटेजिक गेम्स वेयर इट इज रैंडम, यू डोंट नो द आउटकम, but the chances that the outcome will, in the case of an upside, be on your side, are the kind of games you should play. Life is inherently like different data points coming every day to you. You have to exercise every day. There are like a million decisions, right from decision as to coffee peeni ya chai, right? And think of how many of your decisions are completely automated. You don't really think of them. That's why people say habits डालो, it will leave you with more time to do other things. Because it creates like an iron framework, and now you can actually exercise your mind around it. Because think कि अभी पानी पीना है नहीं is also a decision. So there are like a million decisions to make. So same with law, आप इस कोर्ट जाओ, ये करो, वो करो, a million decisions to make. And not all decisions may you pay enough attention. In an ideal world, all decisions may you would pay enough attention. So I'm saying at least जब आप अपना randomness exercise कर रहे हो, at least उसमें उसको automated मत रखो कि अच्छा उतने बजे पानी सुबह ब्रश कर लिया डायरेक्ट जाना. उसमें try and apply your mind. But if you don't also, as a general rule, do things rather than not do things, it is better to do things and get them wrong than not do things.
I'm going to request you to make that answer a bit sharper in context of litigation sort of setting. What is the kind of randomness and how is it controlled? Like you said, controlled randomness.
Complex problems, I don't have direct answers for you. Each complex problem, each case is different in its own way. Each random event has its own vote. To give you straight-jacketed answers is to take away that randomness of that moment. Yeah.
That's nice. And do you think that district court practice has some aspects that are exciting in a way that appellate court practice doesn't have?
Any original side practice, I feel, is, at least I find it very rewarding, because this is the first time the case is starting. So even if it goes to Supreme Court, normally it will be based on what has happened in the original court. So I find it very exciting and I find it very rewarding.
And have you seen your cases conducted by you at the district court level, and maybe High Court, Supreme Court में कोई और वकील engage कर लिया होगा client ने, and then you see how it.
अभी तक ऐसा नहीं हुआ है, but I'm sure that will also happen with time, because to assume that that client will be like, आप तो साकेत में भी killer हो और आप Supreme Court में भी killer हो is.
But I'm sure that's a skill, and I'm sure it's also a matter of trust between you and the client. कि despite losing a round, perhaps in a district level, or winning it in district and then losing it in High Court, the client still believes that for the next stage I want the same lawyer.
Winning and losing, yes, as I said, you have to get your client the best thing. But you can only do things that you can control. मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ, causality बड़ी important.
It's something the client has to understand.
Yeah, and so that is the trust. And मेरा तो simple है, नहीं हो रहा, देखो पेट दर्द आपका, अगर हमारी 2 दवाई से नहीं ठीक हुआ तो I can't hold it against you कि आप किसी और डॉक्टर के पास जा रहे हैं. feel free. I don't think about these things. I don't think about losing clients, and all I think is कि उनके लिए best करें. Or even they want to go to someone else, I will try and suggest them names कि आप उनके पास जाओ. I have no इसमें ego issue. यार केस उसका है यार, कल उसको जेल हो जाएगी तो मतलब it shouldn't be कि मैं ही रहूँगा चाहे वो जेल चले जाए. That's not my attitude. Yeah.
And just a final wrap-up question is independent practice के बारे में. Once, because you're somebody who went independent quite soon.
Yeah, young and dumb.
That's how you like to put it. What is independent practice, and what are some of the things that?
I think independent practice में जो first part है, the word independent, people often don't pay enough attention to that. They pay attention to practice. Now there are things that you can control, things you cannot control. Like when clients will come, you cannot actually control that. You like to think you can कि मैंने 4 मीटिंग कर ली. People you spoke to in 2018 ऐसे randomly are coming with matters now. You know, for 6 years they कि वो fructify हो रहा है, अभी तो लड़ाई चल ही रही है होगी. You know, it will get crystallized at some point. So an independent practitioner is सबसे important. The difference between an independent practitioner and a non-independent practitioner is who can stay independent when there is no work. When there is work, everybody is independent. सब काम आ रहा है, पैसा आ रहा है. But what if there is no work for 3 months? Can you continue to remain independent, or now are you just unemployed? And I think getting that difference often, that's why it's a practice. It's a mixture of academics, definitely academics, you have to read everything, but also business. You know, you have to pay. Like I very strongly believe in, you know, as much as possible trying to pay, मतलब जितना हो सके to juniors and all. I believe that, you know, every time, let's say if I go out and I end up spending thoda sa zyada, I feel terrible. I feel that jiski salary, you know, if you're paying someone like 18-20K and I had a 5,000 ka dinner, I feel, man, मैं घर पे खा लेता, मैं किसी को 5,000 देता, it would be 25% more on their salary. So I very strongly feel that. So I feel for independent practice, one, if you can stay independent when there is nothing to practice, that. And second, the people that you work with, are they willing to work with you? Because at the end, कितना independent individual आप चला लोगे? It's not, you know, it is just not possible. You cannot be at 2 places at one time. That's why most lawyers have a junior or some kind of a team.
Okay, thanks a lot, Utkarsh.
I think I was nervous, but it wasn't. I think thanks to you, it just ended up being a conversation.
Yeah, it came out very smoothly, and thank you very much. And thank you everybody if you're still with us, and please do leave a comment and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know what else you'd like us to ask guests who practice in district courts, and we promise to take it up. Thank you so much, and keep watching.